Hey, hello. There we go. My computer was on this roll. It was like, start already, start already. Hello, hello, hello. It's good to see you. Happy March. This feels like a big day. Like we've made it over the hump. Like maybe spring is on its way. It's been so nice in Indiana this week on and off, which is weird because it was 72 one day and like 22 the next. So we're doing this, which means it must be spring, right? So I'm glad you're here. Last week I did my first live coaching here and it went so well. It was so much fun. And it's something I've been toying with for quite a while. So I decided to bring it back and just make it a weekly thing. So as long as I don't have a previous engagement on Fridays, I am yours here every Friday at 11:30 to come coach you on whatever it is that you want coached on. You can bring anything that's going on in your life. Yes, I normally coach on anxiety and stress and confidence and things like that, but maybe you've got something else going on. Like maybe it's a relationship issue. It's okay. We can coach on whatever you want if you are brave enough to bring it. And I know that can be a big ask because here we are on the internet for everybody to see. And kudos to you for having the guts to say, hey, I need help with this. Help me work through this problem. That's what I do. If we've not met before, my name is Megan and I am a life coach. I work with high achieving people to help them reach their goals when anxiety and stress tend to get in their way and stop them. Maybe it's low confidence, all those things go together, and to help them start changing their relationships with themselves so they know themselves better, they trust themselves more, they know how to calm themselves down, and they start doing really brave things. So that is what I do. It's great to be here and to meet you. If you want coach today, all you have to do is pop into the chat and say, "Hey, I'm here. I want coached." It's super easy. And how this works is I'm just going to ask you questions about your problem and let you think about the answer. So last week, when I did this, what I did was she typed the questions in the chat and I would reply by asking her a question here. So if you're watching and you don't want coached, you just kind of want to spy and see what's going on, that's totally okay too. You can actually follow along and get coached without being the person that's asking the questions or without the person being the person who has like initially come forward and said, "Yes, I want to be coached." So, ask your questions. And then when I ask the person who's being coached, when I ask them questions, use your problem, the problem that you have in your head that maybe you're not sharing, and just think about the questions that I'm asking and how you might answer those for yourself so that you can kind of coach yourself through this and get the answers that you're looking for at the same time. So it doesn't have to be you that's being answered all the time. That's okay. You can always apply those questions to your own life and get some help that you need. And then maybe next week you decide it's my turn, I want to ask, and that's okay. Another thing I want you to know is that my messages are always open. If you are like, this is way too public for me and I do not want to air my dirty laundry, I get it. That's okay. You can just pop into the messages anytime and say, Megan, I would love to talk with you sometime. Let's just talk. I really, really like one of my favorite things about coaching and about this job is that I get the opportunity to have really interesting conversations with people about whatever. And it's not always a hey, I want coaching thing. It's like let's just talk about what's up with like what do you like to do? Tell me about your life, tell me about all the things going on, and let's just talk about what do you love? What do what are your goals? What are you doing to inspire yourself? What are you doing that's scaring you? What are you not doing that you want to do? I want to hear all the things. It's so much fun. So if you're just like, yeah, I would love to have coffee sometime and talk with you more, let's do that. Let's make it a point to just get on Zoom or we could do Google Meet or whatever and talk about, or the phone, like olden days when people used to talk on the phone. Let's get on it. Let's just talk about what is up with your life. I would love to hear more about you and get to know you better. So if you want to be coached, again, just leave a comment and I will keep checking for those. And in the meantime, since my topic this week has been intrusive thoughts, let's just go ahead and talk about that. If you have a question, but you don't want to be coached, that's also okay. You can ask questions in the chat box as well. So let's start by talking about intrusive thoughts, about what they are and what they are not. Intrusive thoughts are just thoughts that you didn't think on purpose, that scare you or that get your attention, that you're like, what was that? And sometimes these intrusive thoughts are really big and scary, and sometimes they're super dark and exactly something that you would never want. I would venture to say more often than not, they are things that you do not want at all, and they're not your personality because they freak you out. And you're like, what kind of horrible human being am I, or crazy human being am I that I would think that thought? You are the normal kind that is under a lot of stress and probably anxious, because those intrusive thoughts usually follow lots of stress and lots of anxiety. You don't notice them when you're really super chill very often. Sometimes because brains are going to do what brains do, and brains think. So it'd be like if you tried to tell your heart to stop beating. It's not going to listen, and your brain is not going to stop thinking. So, intrusive thoughts are really just thoughts that pop into your mind that are either in direct contrast to who you are, that scare you, that get your attention. And this is the thing about intrusive thoughts. When you think about a normal day in the life of anyone on the planet, not even somebody who tends to be more anxious, it could be the most chill, laid back, hippie, monk, whatever you've ever known, they still have thoughts all day long, because that's what brains do. They think. But their thoughts are just floating in and out. They're just like, oh, that's what it is. That's, it's just a thought. We don't pay attention to them. It's the thoughts that get our attention, that stick, that make us remember them, or that freak us out. So intrusive thoughts just have a little more punch to them because they caught your attention. But that doesn't mean you have to give them any more than like, oh, that was weird. That was scary. That was dark. Oh my God, I'm so glad nobody can see what's in above my head. Those people that walk around and say, I'm really glad nobody has like the chat bubble above my head. If they knew what I was thinking, oh God. We all have internal dialogue. Sometimes it gets scary, but that doesn't mean it needs extra attention, and it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It does mean that you probably need to get a handle on your stress or on your anxiety levels, because my guess is that you're feeling pretty rotten most of the time to get to the point where you have those thoughts. And those thoughts might be what's driving your stress or anxiety. We see this a lot with people with OCD, where their thoughts tell them, I need to do this thing, or I have this thought and it scares me. So I feel like I have to create a safety net around myself to protect myself from that thought. But thoughts are not actions. And I think that's a really powerful quote that I heard in this past week, was that thoughts are not actions. So because you think something doesn't mean that you did do something or that you would do something. Okay, so let me give kind of like a crazy thing here. You might have, let me give you, I'll just share one of my intrusive thoughts. And I've shared this one quite a bit. You've probably heard this before if you follow along. But sometimes when I'm making dinner, one of the things that is really meditative for me, and again, meditating is not about stopping your thoughts. It's about just noticing them and letting them flow through. So anything you do, meditating doesn't have to be in a chair with your eyes closed or on a cushion on the floor. It can literally be chopping vegetables. So for me, I am cooking dinner a lot of times and I'm like dancing in my kitchen or whatever. And I have this thing where I'm like cutting vegetables, and you're like chop, 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 chopping, trying not to cut your fingers, but you're like, I could just, I mean, I guess technically I could, right? I could do that, but why would I ever want to do that? It would hurt really bad and I wouldn't have any fingers. Um, that's an intrusive thought. And I'm always like, why? Every time I'm chopping vegetables, do I have this? So at this point, my brain just expects that when I'm going to chop vegetables, I'll probably just think about chopping my fingers off, which so far so good. And I'm 48, so I don't think that's ever going to happen. Yours may be something else. It may be something really, really, like I've talked with people who have some really incredibly like scary thoughts. Now, what I want to be really clear about here is scary thoughts are not thoughts that you want to act on. They're not self-harm thoughts. So if my thought was, I deserve to cut my fingers off, or I need to do this so I can feel something, or I'm going to do this, like I almost do it, that is different. And in that case, please do not call me. Please call someone who can help you right away, because you should not have those thoughts. Those thoughts are thoughts that indicate that maybe we need to talk about some bigger mental health issues. And I am not your girl for that. I love you. The best thing I'm going to do is refer you to a therapist or to a psychiatrist or somebody who can really help you get those things under control. And then once they're under control, you can circle back to me and we can start working on the groundwork of really like just noticing your thoughts and being able to manipulate your thoughts a little bit and saying, oh, well, that was interesting. What do I want to do to respond? So I can help you create new actions if like when you're having those thoughts. Like what do you want to do when that thought gets your attention? If it scares you, let's just talk about how we can let it move off. Or let's talk about how you can divert your attention to something else and not give it that. But if these are bigger thoughts of self-harm, you need to right away, you can message me and say, I don't know where to go for help, and I will for sure help you find that help. But I do not coach on those kinds of thoughts. Okay, so I hope that was clear. I hope that we understand where we're going with that. The thoughts that I help people with are the silly ones, like I don't know. I guess I could just hack my fingers off. Random thoughts, or thoughts even that are bigger than that, but you're like, I would absolutely never ever do that. That I can help you with. But if the thought is that I think I might, not me. Okay. All right, that's clear. So, intrusive thoughts. The reason they show up is because your brain is always thinking and it's trying to protect you from something. And you might be wondering, like, how is this protecting me? It's protecting me because, I mean, all of your thoughts, let me back up on that. Not all of your thoughts are always protective thoughts, right? Like if I'm sitting here and daydreaming about Care Bears, that's not a protective thought. This is just like a random thought that comes in. But the fact that I noticed it and that it alarmed me, the alarm is protecting me. The Care Bears was just a random thing because I am a child of the 80s and I love them and I wish that there were more Care Bear things that were not stupid now. Okay. I'm on a tangent. I'm sorry. So, when we're talking about these intrusive thoughts, a thought that you might be able to replace it with that's been really helpful for people that I've worked with who experience sometimes like littler intrusive thoughts and other times really big, dark, scary intrusive thoughts is, well, that's one thought. Here's why. If you have 60,000 of them a day, 59,999 more are coming, and that was just one. You can choose to say, oh, that one was big and important and I better never forget it. Or you can choose to say, oh, that's one thought and push it out the door. When you do that, you're taking away its power. Now, you can't force yourself not to think it because just by thinking about it, you're thinking about it. It's like whole metacognition thing. But you can just notice it and realize it doesn't mean anything. Here's the other part. If it's a thought that makes you anxious, so in the past, some of my intrusive thoughts really contributed more to my health anxiety, where I would say, oh, I felt this thing. It's probably random disease, pick one. And then I would start thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it because I had this thought with like, you have this tumor, you have this neurological nightmarish disease. So I would think that, and then I would get invested in it, or I would hear something and it would make me believe it about myself, and it would trigger more intrusive thoughts like, oh, that's your liver, it's because it's failing, whatever. Those kinds of thoughts, those thoughts that are like, what, but they really get your attention, those can sometimes feel sticky because your body will react. It will be like, that's dangerous. And now I'm going to flood you with a bunch of adrenaline and a bunch of cortisol. And you're really going to get stuck in this cycle of thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling. And this is where we have to create that exit ramp. So before you get to that point, when the thought is just a thought, if you can get in the habit of just saying, well, that's one thought, and letting it go, then maybe we can exit that traffic circle of thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling. Because as soon as you exit, then you've given yourself a way to let go of that thought by calming your body down and also realizing that when your body is worked up, you're not allowed to think anymore. Okay, so that's really what I help people do. I help them learn to recognize their thoughts as only thoughts. They're not necessarily true or false. They don't really have any positive or negative connotation until you decide that. And I help you choose how to deal with those thoughts and also how to deal with anxiety inside your body. And the way that we do that is we take it on a weekly basis. So every week when I'm talking with clients, they come to me and I'm like, Tell me some things that went well. We want to force your brain to start what's going to what's working. And we say, what's going well? Let's grow some brain cells that way. Let's get some neurons going in that direction so that your brain can look a little bit less at everything that scares you, that's not going well, that you don't like, that you don't want to experience. Let's start looking at what you do want to experience. And then we'll say, okay, what really didn't go well this week? Let's talk about that for a minute. And from there, I'm like, okay, what do you want coached on? And sometimes people will say, oh my gosh, this happened this week. I need coached on this. That's great. And other times they'll say, I don't know. And if that's the case, we just talk a little bit more about what went well and what didn't go well. And let's talk about how you feel about that. Like, did you notice how did it make you feel? Did it make you feel anxious? Did it make you feel excited? Are those the same feelings for you? Can you tell the difference? And we start working through anxiety in all of the little nooks and crannies where it shows up in your life. Because even if you have something like I did, where it's health anxiety and it tends to be really focused on your health, I promise you that it's showing up in your behaviors, in what you're willing to do, and in your thoughts, in all these different parts of your life. So when we can start picking it apart one little bit at a time, as it's happening in your normal life, you'll notice that all of a sudden that knot's not so tight. And then it's looser, and you're like, oh, wait a second, I can identify this one, or I can identify this thing. And we can start pulling it apart a little bit further until sometimes I feel anxious, but now I know I don't have to really recognize my thoughts anymore. And I'm willing to feel that anxiety in my body, and I know how to calm it down. And then it's like, I don't know, I've had a few weeks and I haven't felt anxious at all. And so we notice that your thoughts aren't racing anymore because your body's calm. And then maybe we come back after a few weeks and you're like, whoa, this was bad. Like, I don't know what happened, but I lost it this week. That's okay. That's okay. Because anxiety recovery is never going to be this like straight line up or straight line down. It's always going to look like a mountain range, or it's going to look like the stock market. You're going to have days where you're more tired. Ladies, you're going to have days where your hormones totally screw with your emotions and your body, and you're going to feel anxious. You're going to have real life, big, scary, stressful things come up. And so I ride with people through all of those things for 6 months at a week at a time, and we pick them apart as we go. And we just start looking at how do you react to that? What do you want to experience with that? Oops, it says my internet is not connecting well. I hope you guys can still see me. So what we do is we work through it a week at a time, and we look at those intrusive thoughts. We look at what you're thinking, and we start, how did that make your body feel? Did it make you feel anxious, or did it feel true? Anxious feels true. And can you tell if it's actually true? Because the funny thing is that even though we have that feeling, or we know that the thought is crazy, we have another side piece to that where we also know deep down inside of you, in the quietest whisper, even in the middle of your biggest anxiety or panic attack, there is a teeny, teeny, tiny part of you that knows that everything is okay. And that's the part we start to listen to. That's your truth. And we start growing that so it's not so quiet. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. I know how this works. So if you are interested in hearing more, I would love to chat with you. As I said, you can message me anytime and just say, hey, can we just talk? Like, can we jump on the phone? Let's just talk about what's going on in your life. Tell me all the stories. And then if you decide you want to go one step forward, we can talk about what coaching is like, what it's like to work with me, what it's not like to work with me, and we can go from there. I hope this was really helpful. And of course, if you have questions, don't be shy about reaching out. If you know somebody that struggles with intrusive thoughts, who is always stressed out, they're like biting your head off for no reason, then crying and apologizing for it, or you see them like running to the bathroom because they always have to poop because anxiety will screw with your guts. If you know somebody that is just always exhausted and inside of themselves, please share this video with them. They need this information. I 100% believe that we can take this anxiety epidemic down to like the lowest levels. Maybe it's been since way before I was born because I was an anxious kid. We can learn how to handle it. We can teach people that it's okay to be really sensitive and to have all these really big feelings, and that they're still safe. So I hope this helps you. I hope it helps your friends and family. And I hope you have a really fantastic weekend. I will be back next Friday again at 11:30 for more live coaching. If you have something you want coached on and you want to let me know ahead of time, you can message me and tell me. I will see you then. Take care.